This is one of the most fascinating, energetic and exciting cities in the whole of the world. I'm standing on the continent of Europe. The bridge in the distance leads across to Asia because half of Istanbul is in Asia, half of it in Europe. It had been here for centuries before the Emperor Constantine moved the Roman Empire, the base of the Roman Empire, here in 330 AD. Then it was called Constantinople. In the 13th century, the Ottoman sultans took over and it became Byzantium. And in the 20th century, when Ataturk set up the Republic of Turkey, it became Istanbul.
It's all quite exotic and alien. The religion and the architecture, the sights, the sounds, the pace, the tastes and the smells of Istanbul are essentially quite different from Western Europe, even if it has got one foot on our continent. That dividing waterway, the Bosphorus, is hectic with activity, and there are 5 absolute musts for the tourist, apart from just gulping down the unique atmosphere. The first is one of the world's greatest religious buildings, which has stood for 1,500 years.
Hagia Sophia is from the 6th century, built by Justinian the Great. In the 6th century, that was the golden period of the Byzantine Empire. That was the biggest roofed building in the world. It was converted into a mosque by the 15th century by the Ottomans. And it's possible to see some of those best preserved icons, mosaics, in St. Sophia Church. As we cannot have any picture in our religion, you know, all those mosaics, they were under the plaster, so that's how they were so well preserved. 1935, it became a museum. They took the plaster off. So I can say those are probably the best preserved mosaics in the world, dating back to the 9th and 11th centuries.
Number 2 on my list hides behind a humble facade which could be a public loo. In fact, it's the Basilica Cistern. It's an underground reservoir built in AD 532 by the Emperor Justinian. They call it the Sunken Palace. If it looks familiar, that's because it featured in the James Bond film From Russia with Love. Classical columns, all 336 of them, and 26 feet high, hold up the city above as they have for a millennium and a half, and it's cool in the city heat. And that's Medusa, the mythological woman with snakes for hair. And yes, she is upside down. She was just a building block for a Christian emperor. Number 3 on the list is the Grand Bazaar, literally thousands of shops under one ancient roof. It's got a posh end and a more traditional area. Now, be warned, you'll be mercilessly hassled to spend, so be tough if you don't want to buy anything. But there are high-quality goods to be had among some souvenir trash. Turkish rugs and carpets are available in endless varieties of pattern, size and price. There were 5 shops right by the one cafe where we stopped for a soft drink. And, by the way, the bazaar, like most of traditional Istanbul, is alcohol-free. But there's a huge range of other quality goods. Meerschaum pipes, beloved by Sherlock Holmes. The jewellery shops group in areas: the silversmiths, the goldsmiths, coppersmiths and brass workers. And Istanbul also has a modern face. All the big-name global stores are here across the Golden Horn in the Beyoglu shopping and entertainment district. There's a big pedestrian area. Pedestrian apart from risking your life under the traditional tram, that is. And the elegant 19th century flower passage inside the French-inspired Cité de Pera is a cool place for a drink, a proper meal or just for snacking. The Topkapi Palace was built by Sultan Mehmet II in the middle of the 15th century, once the Christians had been kicked out after the fall of Constantinople. The Ottomans ran their empire from Algeria to Egypt to Vienna from here. It was old-style Eastern luxury all the way. Inside the Topkapi treasury are masterpieces of silver, gold and fabulous jewels. That's a mere 88 carats of diamond. The emerald collection alone is worth billions, but eventually everyone heads for one place.
This harem, Topkapi Palace harem, was the Sultan's home. Our black eunuchs were brought from North Africa in their very early ages, castrated and trained according to the court customs and traditions.
It's a quietly cloistered place today, but it used to be home to those unfortunate eunuchs who looked after 400 women. Not all concubines, some were just servants. It's opulent in the extreme, has 400 rooms, and it used to have its own hospital, 2 big swimming pools, 10 Turkish baths, and all of that gathered around 8 very well guarded courtyards. Istanbul is known for its crazy traffic and Grand Prix taxi drivers, but close to the Topkapi Palace is one of many quieter residential districts with their old, traditional wooden-built houses. Mostly they date from the 19th century, and many have been restored to their former glory around fountained courtyards. And tradition is important in Istanbul. Apart from those must-see attractions, we headed for a couple of uniquely Turkish experiences. The Cembelitaş Hammam welcomes tourists. It's open from 6 in the morning to midnight, and when you get out into the midsummer temperatures in the mid-30s Celsius, it feels positively cool again. Local men gather in old-fashioned tea rooms across the city for a smoke, but a smoke with a difference. The water pipes have what look like fat cigars sticking out of them, and they're kept alight with a piece of charcoal. No wonder we call them Hubble bubble pipes. And on to my final choice of unmissable sites. It's known for its classical Islamic architecture, although its builder was criticised for trying to rival Mecca.
The Blue Mosque was built between the 1609 and 1616. It took them only 7 years to build that mosque. The reason you call it the Blue Mosque because of those blue-colored tiles inside the mosque, and they are tiles about 22,000 pieces from Nicaea. And that's the only mosque in the world which was originally built with 6 minarets, and we have 16 balconies on those 6 minarets. The Sultan who built that mosque was Sultanahmet. And the reason he put 16 balconies on the minarets, he was the 16th Sultan from the beginning of Ottoman Empire.
Across the Golden Horn Creek and lying on the wider Bosphorus shore is the Dolmabahce Palace, built in the 19th century when the Ottoman sultans decided to get more westernised. It's impressive, all right, but not that different from what you'll see in Western Europe. The interior houses a shrine to the founder of modern Turkey, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, who died here. Clocks all round the palace were deliberately stopped at 9:05, the time the victor at Gallipoli died. Five minutes from the palace is one of Istanbul's main ferry terminals. I only had time for the death-defying 30-minute trip across to the Asian shore of the Bosphorus and back into the city's old district. But you can take half-day tours along the Bosphorus to the Black Sea. Its shoreline is lined with castles, mansions, parks and small towns.
And this is the Pera Palace Hotel. It was opened in 1892 for people who just finished their journeys on the Orient Express to stay here. Agatha Christie stayed here. In fact, she wrote Murder on the Orient Express in room 411. And among some of the other great names to stay here were Mata Hari, the First World War spy, Ernest Hemingway, Greta Garbo, all sorts of celebrated people.
And it's worth a drink in the old bar for sure. We stayed at the modern Hyatt Regency.
We're close to Taksim Square, which is where a lot of the nightlife and restaurant scene, and especially the local type restaurants. So there's quite a bit to do just within walking distance without having to get into a taxi first.